Welcome back to this episode of the Danny Beal Show. We still have, obviously, an awesome guest with Cliff Godwin on. Had a great conversation in the first part. This is part two, obviously delving into a lot of life aspects with this part. Great conversation, awesome human being, one of my favorite best friends, awesome human. Hope you guys enjoy this part as well. Hope you guys enjoyed part one, and let's go. This was going to be a big part of, obviously, you coming to East Carolina, but you, at Ole Miss at least, obviously get the chance to go to Omaha, big part of the offense. You're running it, you're coaching third base, all that stuff, and you got a chance to obviously coach the AKs, the Henrys, and the Colbys of the world while you were there. But if you don't know baseball, at least from the perspective of, obviously, your trail through college, and you look at Ole Miss, how the program's run, who runs it, the type of players they create, the culture that they have, you see a lot of similarities in us as in them. And it didn't start until you got here. So I guess the question is, how much did you take from Ole Miss to transfer it to kind of create, not necessarily copy them, but recreate a good thing that you had over there into a place here where you're running it, it's your show, and you can make it even better and add your own ideals into it all the way from Oxford?
I would say I've been very blessed to work with a lot of successful head coaches, and I've taken bits and pieces from each one of them. And I go back to, Ronnie Battle, who, if you're not from this area, you have no idea, like one of the best human beings I've ever been associated with, who was a veteran coach. And you look at it, no ego, man. Like, I wish I'd have learned that, even though I was there for a year. Like, I probably reflect back on that now more so than I did at the time. And probably thought he didn't have enough edge, like, hey, I'm going to bring the edge because Coach Battle's so nice. And then I go work for Coach Scaff, who has had success, but the year I was there was the first conference championship UNCW had ever won, and he had been there for some time. But Coach Scaff treated everybody the same. It didn't matter if you were a janitor. It didn't matter if you could donate $1 million. It didn't matter if you were everybody the same. Mm-hmm. And I always respected that about Coach Scaff. Coach Scaff, I went to his dad's funeral this fall, and Lee Grant, my buddy, and Danny Dahl and Blaine Joyner, who played for him, who all of them are my friends. They all, and Lee played for him as well. Danny played basketball. But Coach Scaff was like, I know you guys had a lot of things you could be doing this afternoon, and you chose to be. I said, Coach Scaff, I wouldn't have missed it, man. Like, for the time that we spent together.
Invested, yeah.
Yeah. And then Tim Corbin, like organization, work ethic, guy was a machine, like I said, I was drinking out of a fire hose for sure. But just the amount of detail he put into everything, I took that from him. Coach Maneri, more of kind of a general manager, CEO, really good at managing the game and doing the public speaking and stuff like that. And then Terry, man, recruiting, like I said, it was a blessing that I got dropped off in a state that I didn't know, that has obviously been very beneficial to Ole Miss and also East Carolina. We've got a lot of Florida guys and just connecting, but like Terry was such a relentless recruiter, and learning, having those connections. I mean, we still get players from Florida. I mean, you go, Starling. I mean, we don't get
the list
Starling.
goes on.
Yeah,
I know,
the list
sure.
goes.
Nick Barber too.
Yeah, Nick Barber. Even AMAC. We don't get any of those guys if I don't have connections from the state of Florida. And then Coach Bianco, it's the system. I mean, he still calls it the system. And it's like, hey, if you have a McDonald's cheeseburger in Snow Hill, North Carolina, or you have one in California, It's the same.
Same burger.
People expect the same thing, and of course, he got a lot of that stuff from Skip Berkman, who won, I think, 5 national championships at LSU. It's amazing now when I mention Skip Berkman, nobody knows who that is.
Well,
that goes to show you, like, people don't care how many games you win. Like, when your time's done, it's going to be the relationships that they remember. They're not going to remember how many national championships that you've won. And that doesn't mean we don't want to win a national championship. But Skip Berman, in my time, like, as a player, that guy was like the godfather.
The guy, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
the guy. Like, there was nobody close.
Yeah.
Like I said, Coach Bianco, he has a very close circle for it, but, like, we're close. We don't talk all the time, but the best thing I brought to Ole Miss is I just be like, hey, why do we do this?
Just asking questions.
Just ask a question and propose, and you always had to back up stuff with stats for Coach B. So you had to have you better have your ducks in a row. But that was the best thing, because he had a lot of people that had worked for him that were kind of like that were former players, and I don't think they were, like, scared. But Coach Bianco's kind of got that presence, even though he's a short dude. Like, hey man, like, you don't really want to mess with him. Don't mess with that guy.
Have you seen ejection videos of him? I remember last year they were playing. I think it was Mississippi State in Swayze, and I think it was either last year or 2 years ago. But they had a hot mic, and he was just letting this umpire have it, and it's like a perfect representation of what you're talking about. I was like, yeah, he might be small in stature. Don't screw with him.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah,
that's so funny. But yeah, it's like a melting pot almost of you taking little things from every coach and obviously turning yourself into the head coach you are today. But you're in Omaha with Ole Miss, and you're meeting with East Carolina. You're meeting with it was JJ and Jeff Comfort at the time, was it not?
Jeff Comfort, Jay Batt, who's now the AD at Georgia Tech, JJ, Nick Floyd. Maybe Coach O was in there. I'm sorry, Coach O, can't remember. But it was a group, Doubletree Hotel, 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning. So
you guys were still in the tournament, right?
No, we hadn't opened up yet. So we were open up on Sunday. But the thing I would tell you is my agent's so good, Balk Sports. They do football and baseball coaches. They had done my resume. I had done a mock interview with them the day before. And, I mean, it was like a real one. He was like, hey, I'm going to call you, and I'm not your agent. Like, we're going right into this. So I walked in, like, super prepared. And, of course, them being an agent and being through this stuff, they, have an idea of what ADs are going to ask and all that stuff. Sure. And but the interview went great. But the one thing was, and JJ can tell you this, but I was like, I want to see the place because I haven't seen the insides and stuff in a while. Yeah. We had played here when I was at UCF, but I hadn't seen. And JJ said Jeff Conway just made him so nervous because they was like people like painting the walls and stuff and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I wasn't like totally sold. I wanted to make sure they were committed to supporting us at a level. I'm not coming back to my alma mater if you're not going to support us where we can win.
There's no point.
But they said they would, but I didn't even tell my parents. I think I've told you this story, but both my parents were in Omaha, and I didn't tell them that I was interviewing for the job. And I interviewed on Saturday. We played on Sunday. We lost to North Carolina on we lost to UVA. Lost to Carolina with LSU. We lost to UVA in game one.
Those
and
damn helmets flying off, the baggy jerseys, Jesus.
My mom walks in my room and goes, hey, I'm getting a lot of calls from Greenville. Did you interview for the East Carolina job? So I was like, Mom, I did. And but that was funny. And then June 25th, I think, 2014, I had my press conference.
This episode is also brought to you by Tiebreakers. Tiebreakers is open every day at 11 a.m. and is the best place to watch your favorite sports while enjoying the best wings in town, as well as sandwiches, appetizers, cold beer, and more. Follow Tiebreakers on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates. Tiebreakers is in Greenville at Bell's Fork on Greenville Boulevard and in downtown Winterville on Railroad Street. Yep, and that was where kind of the big line in the sand was drawn in terms of it's your first head coaching job and it's where you played. And obviously, the call and the decision was tough, I'm assuming, especially in the middle of, you guys still playing. But you kind of established, like, hey, I don't know the way old Coach Godwin did it. I don't know. I don't really care. But this is the way we're going to do it. And you establish, obviously, the Pirates' mission. And in your process of initially getting started there, you obviously had to look at the roster and be like, okay, here's what we're going to take. Here's what we're going to leave. Here's the situation. But hiring a staff that you knew that you could trust and go forward with, Coach Rozelle was already here.
Yep.
and you brought on Coach Palumbo
Yep.
because of the relationship at UCF. But that first year, and I've heard many stories of when you first got here, but
Well, let's stop just for a second because I think this is important because much different back then it is now. So you can imagine it would have been a mass exodus. But my first day on the job, and when I say on the job, I have my press conference. I went to lunch with JJ, Garrett Blackwater, and John Williamson. And as soon as that was over, I sat down with Dan Roselle and Ben Sanderson at the time, and I went through the roster. Well, they were over 11.7 scholarships. Well, no offense, like I didn't offer these kids, but literally I had to.
Guys, yeah.
Hey, and Dan helped me out a lot, but we had to talk to 2 players and go, hey, like you can't come back. And I don't even know these. I'm like, man, I didn't know this was part of the job.
Yeah,
like, hey, we're already over scholarship.
Yeah.
The other thing is Ben Sanderson, who played with me, like we were boys in college. And and he was obviously coaching at East Carolina. We weren't as close at the time, but I had to tell him, like, I'm not retaining him. So that was my first day on the job at East Carolina. And people think it's all this hunky-dory, like it's a great thing. And I did up until that afternoon. I was like, hey, that was great until right now.
Yeah.
But I knew Jeff was going to be the recruiting coordinator, and I had to recruit Sarah, his wife, because he had moved her all over the country.
Yeah.
I had to recruit
She's probably
Jeff.
like, can we just pick a spot, please?
Yeah. And Pete Moscano, who was a manager at UCF, I called him up, and he was actually the first hire. And I said, Pistol, I know you, because he was set up to go to grad school at Ole Miss, and we had him on basically a full ride to be a graduate manager.
Wow.
And I said, Pistol, I know you're set up to go to grad school, but got an ops job open here at East Carolina. I want you to be my director of baseball operations. He's working camp at Clemson for Jack Leckett. And he goes, Coach, I'm at camp. I just need to get a break in camp where I can talk to Coach Leggett. And then I'm going to get in my car, drive to Clearwater, pack up some things, and then I'll be up there tomorrow. So literally, he went Clemson to Clearwater, Clearwater to Greenville in like 48 hours, and he was the first hire. And then got Jeff, and then I interviewed one other pitching coach, and Nick Schnabel had worked with Dan Roselle, and he said, CG, he's a great pitching coach, and he's a good person. He said, you should just at least interview him. And that's all Schnaub said. And I just didn't see a big enough difference when the guy that I interviewed to take a guy that had kids, and not that was the only right. Like I knew he had developed guys, but I didn't want to just say, hey, I'm going to go hire my own guy to say I did it. And that's the thing that tipped the scales up for me. I didn't want to kick some guy out without a job.
Yeah. Sure.
With his family, and and it worked out well. So,
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
it's always tough. Like and I say this like I know what I'm talking about, but it's always tough initially getting into that fight immediately because you're thrown right into the fire. Like you just said, you're at the press conference, like all right, let's get started, and then it's like, oh boy, what did I just sign up for, kind of thing. But you obviously get into the season and. 2016, obviously 2015, you made a regional. People don't really remember that part.
Well, and I actually said, like in the off season, which I really didn't know what I was saying. I was just being arrogant, but I was like, oh yeah, we're going to a regional. And then I'm like at practice going, oh shit.
We are? Is that like, did I just say what I just said? Yeah.
And I remember talking to Jeff in the Tampa airport, and this was probably 3/4 of the way through the season. And I looked at him and I said, we're not going to a regional, are we? He goes, not unless we win the conference tournament.
Hey, at least you guys are on the same page.
But then we got hot, man. We won a bunch of one-run games. Like we're at UConn, and I think Jeff Nelson throws a guy out at the plate, like to win the game or to put us to extra innings. And I'm getting chill bumps because UConn was better than us. And then we went like NC State, Duke midweek.
Louise, who made that schedule?
2 walk-offs. One was extra innings, I think, the Duke game, and then Duke, the NC State game was in the 9th, I think. And we just got. We just got rolling, and then of course we win the we were going to make a regional even if we hadn't won the conference
at that point
because we just went on a roll. There at the end.
Yeah, well, you end up in obviously Miami and get bounced, and but I'm assuming at the end of that year it's like, all right, well, like that's pretty positive first year considering the way it started, right? Like,
well, I mean they hadn't been to a regional in 2 years. So.
It's like first year, all right, cool, made a regional. And then the following year, I feel like, is kind of the starting point in our eyes, at least the player, like former players, alumni and stuff, of that's when the culture began. That's the Garrett Brookses. That's the Travis Watkins of the world. Of like, those are the guys that initially, at least, we think of. All right, that's where it started. That's the standard that's set. And you obviously have a great year. I mean, it was Dwanye, it was Bridgie, it was Cam, Holba, Washer, Sam, like all these guys that you think of, like, at least from our perspective, I know those are the guys that started it all. And you take 2 out of 3 at UVA early in the season. So you're like, all right, they're top 10, top 5 program where it's like, all right, we got a ball club this year.
I got to tell you a quick story about that right there.
So 2 out of 3 UVA?
We're getting ready to go to UVA, and we're lifting on Thursday morning before. Luke Bolka, late for lift, and he had some other issues, and I'm like, I'm so pissed. Like, I want to like physically harm Bolka. And I'm coming back from the weight room, and I see him walking, and I'm like, just meet me in my office. Yeah. And everything in my fiber is like, I need to kick him off the team.
Yeah.
Like, he's done enough stuff like over his track record in a year and a half, and I'm basically like, dude, I'm so pissed at you right now, and I should kick you off the team. But our team actually needs you because he's a right-handed DH, and we're getting ready to go into UVA, and one of their best pitchers was a lefty, and I think he's Lynch. I think he's big leaguer. And I'm like, I'm going to take you on this trip because these guys deserve to have the opportunity. I said, but you're going to run the entire practice on Thursday night. So, and if you stop at any point in time, if you need water, somebody better throw you a water bottle. Because if you stop at any point in time, I'm sending you back on a bus to Greenville, and you're packing your stuff. So Bolka runs the entire time. We've done our like pretty much same standard practice we've done. So like 2 hours. I forgot about him. Like, we're getting huddled up for like prayer, and
he's
like,
still he's still jogging
on the track. And one of the guys, I don't know who said it, was like, "Hey, coach, Bolka good? Oh yeah, Bolka, you're good." So,
but he was thrilled.
And hits a 3-run jack on the Saturday game, but he talks about how sore his legs were.
Coach, I would have been better bear crawling around the bases rather than the way I was running. Yeah, probably. But hey, it goes into everything happens for a reason.
But I would tell you that team, I felt like we underachieved consistently in the regular season. Then we got a conference tournament, man. All the guys, West Covington, I hope Covey hears this, like spike ball. I'm letting them do all stuff we go 0-2 and bounce, and I'm so angry. I'm like, I can't believe we just laid an egg in the con. And we played bad. Like, it just was no energy. And,
right. That was, you guys bust back?
It's the only time we've had to bust back because the story has preceded itself. Everybody knows, like, 0-2 in the conference tournament. Coach G's making you guys bust back. Yeah. Well, that's the team. 2016.
Priority 1 is win the thing. Priority 2 is don't go until.
Yeah, exactly. And we bust back. It was it's miserable for the coaches, too. Sure. It's like 14 hours.
Sucks for everybody.
So we get back, dude, and we have like 2 scrimmages on Saturday and Sunday. It's like fall practice, dude, and it's like intense.
Getting after it, yeah.
And we got after it, and we go to the regional, and we're playing Bryant and facing a big leaguer. But we practice on Thursday, and Jeff Palumbo tells a story where the Bryant coaches walk up, and just the way our intent was at that practice for an hour and 15 minutes. You know how the regional is.
It's gotta be quick, yeah.
But the Bryant coach saw him that summer and said, Coach Palumbo, whatever his name was, he goes, I knew we were in trouble when I watched you guys practice.
And you were the 4 seed.
3 seed.
3 seed. Brian was the 2 seed. William and Mary. That's right.
Yeah. Krasinski, All-American that year, our Friday night guy, goes 7, and I can't remember their big leaguer, but I do remember that on video didn't have a changeup. Like, you couldn't throw for strikes. So I told the guys, like, hey, changeups.
Don't even worry about it.
Non-existent. Fastball, breaking ball. First inning, he's got all 3. Charlie Jorgen strikes on changeup. I'm like,
oh boy,
wow. But Cruz pitches unbelievable, and we're up 1-0, or I think 1-0, or maybe it's 1-1, and Cruz has thrown 7 innings. The only time I've ever walked down to him, and I was like, "Hey, Cruz, how are you?" He's like, "Coach, I'm gassed, man. I got nothing." And I'm like, oh, boy, wow. I'm like,
first time I
walked away. Didn't tell Cruz this, but I'm like, well, we're screwed. Yep. So
we're done. Yep. Call it.
But they had a All-American closer who wasn't a hard thrower, but he's a lefty, and we put up 7 runs in the 8th inning.
Thank God. Yes.
And so they were the home team. So now we could go to our bullpen.
Yeah, exactly.
And you feel a little more comfortable.
Sure.
But when Cruz was like, "Hey, coach, I got nothing left," I was like, "Well,
Yep,
hey, good ride."
Yeah, it was fun while it lasted. Yeah, yeah, literally. That's so funny. Hope you guys enjoying this episode. This episode is brought to you by Brandon Manning. From his days as a Pitt County Bulldog to his years at ECU, Brandon Manning bleeds purple and gold in anything local sports. Brandon was born and raised in Pitt County, and now, as your local Farm Bureau insurance agent in Winterville, Brandon can take care of you and your family with auto, home, life, and health insurance by calling him at 252-531-1812. Thanks to Brandon Manning for his support of the show, obviously. But again, you can reach him at 252-531-1812. Thanks, Brandon. But you end up winning a crazy regional with the walk-offs and the way it ended, obviously. But the first experience you had as a head coach was in Lubbock. And you've talked to, at least to us as a team, about how you win game 1 and you see Bridgie closing it out as a true freshman and all this stuff happening. And you're so close in game 2 to the point where it's like, that is a good experience, yes, in hindsight. But in the moment, it's like, we're so close. And then game 3 happens and it doesn't obviously end very well, almost kind of like the Texas series. But what at the end of that series, what was the thought process? It, not only from you, but the players as well, of like, we were so close and we've had 2 great years. And going forward, was it a positive, like, all right, we're a good ball club, we can hang with the big dogs? Or is it like, geez, we missed another opportunity?
I think it gave our guys a lot of confidence. I mean, I think it was a blessing for us to get sent to UVA because we had won 2 or 3 out there.
That's right.
And if you remember the UVA game, we're down 3 runs, but we had traffic, man. Like, I didn't see the stat until, of course, African. We were like 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position.
Not ideal.
I think Casey Jones, who was a first rounder, I'm probably saying his name wrong. Garrett Brooks had struck out like 3 times against him when we played him the second week and looked like he didn't want to be out there. Garrett Brooks is on every pitch. He's like 3 for 3 and like cannot, like, and we just couldn't get a big hit.
Man on fire.
And so Kirk Morgan leads off that 9th inning, and we're the home team because we were the 3 seed in game 1, so visitors, and UVA was the home team. You know how regionals go. And Kirk Morgan leads off with like a perfect swinging push bunt. And Kirk Morgan is not fast whatsoever. And the inning before, we had Joe Engel in, and he's our closer, and we were down 3, and Jeff came to me and goes, "Hey, if we don't score in the 8th, are you going to take Joe out?" I go, "No." I said, because if we lose this game, we have no shot of winning the regional.
No,
we don't have enough pitching. So Joe goes back out there in the 9th and gives up zeros. And so Kurt Moreland, I will tell you this, every ball that was hit after that one was on the screws.
Yeah, just nailed, yeah.
The only out was Turner Brown putting down a sack bunt who was hitting the 4-hole to get runners to 2nd and 3rd.
That's so funny.
To get Travis up with 2nd and 3rd, tying runs at 3rd base, go-ahead runs at 2nd, and hits a walk-off jack.
And hey, everything happens for a reason. And for all the people that are like, why is Hoover hitting the 4-hole? Why is Riley Johnson in the 4-hole? Hey, there's a method to the madness. Case in point, Turner Brown putting out and look what happened.
Well, and we weren't that great offensively, so you're just trying to mix up the lefties and righties and like, hey, can he move this guy?
Right.
But then we go to Lubbock, and you just like, I think the guys knew we were good, you know, and you've heard the story, but probably got too comfortable. But for me, it was a whirlwind because Alabama had already reached out before we had even gone to the Super Regional through my agent, and that's the way that they get around it. You know, like they can't contact me, but my agent goes, "Hey, look, they're interested," and so exit meetings, and then it's like, I don't want to go to Tuscaloosa. I don't like the last time that I was in Tuscaloosa. The only difference is there's now a brand new $42 million stadium, so I know that it's going to be nice. I do not want to get on a plane and go down there. Yeah. And so Jeff Comfort, look, man, AD's got to do what they got to do. And but I had to send him over a list of things, a lot of the things that you benefited from a video board and hitting indoor and all that
Here's
stuff.
My list, yeah.
Yeah. They weren't, but I mean, I called JJ, like my knee obviously was bad shape, but I ran like 2 miles. I like didn't go into the office. The flight was at like 12:45 out of Greenville. I was not packed at 11 o'clock that morning. I'm like, there's no way there's no way they're going to let me get on this plane.
Right.
Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And it was worrying enough for me that I called my mom and dad. It was like emotional. It's like, I might be the next head coach at Alabama, and I'm sorry, but they've got to take care of us. And I had never called my parents and told them that. So I get on the plane, and I go down there, and Bill Battle actually, I think he just passed away, and he was awesome. He was like an interim AD because the AD had passed away. The Alabama AD, I think the last name was Moore, like kind of like suddenly, so they had to get somebody in place. And but I don't know if I should tell the story, but I'm just going to tell it anyway. But within the first hour I'm there, I'm sitting in his office, and he's like, how much money will it take you to be the next head coach at Alabama? And I said, Mr. Battle, I really have not thought about that. And he goes, no, how much money will it take? And I said, well, I don't think I should be paid at the top of the league, but I shouldn't be paid at the bottom of the league either. And at the time, there had just been a couple guys in the SEC head coaches that were making like $1 million. And he just pinned me down, and I'm like trying to do math in my head. I'm like, $700,000. And he's like, do you know how much our head coach was making, Coach Gaspar? I said, yes, sir, $350. And I said, but like I told you, I don't think I should be paid at the bottom, but I should be paid at the top. And went back to the hotel that night and did the math with my agent. And the
Bear Bryant suite.
And the Bear Bryant suite. Signed my name under Bobby Bowden. Wish I'd taken a picture. True story. Yeah. And the average SEC head coach, I was $695, so I nailed it. But he basically told me, hey, call me tomorrow when you get back and with a number with yourself and your your assistants that you bring. Because I've always said that I'm taking my staff. Like, it is
for sure
non-negotiable when Coach Godwin's ever been in interview. Hey, who's going to be your staff? Well, I'm bringing my staff. Like, the guys that have been in the foxhole with me, they're coming with me. We'll figure out the recruiting area dynamic. Like, hey, don't you worry about that. Like, we're good enough that we can do that. But I fly back, I'm like so nervous. And I called Jeff Confer that night, and it was like the Red Sea parted, like, hey, well, it's going to take me some time. And I'm like, hey, man, I got to call the guy back tomorrow.
It's red pill or blue pill, literally.
And about an hour before I called Bill Battle, Jeff Confer, I would say this, I appreciate Jeff Confer because a lot of things that we have today came from him. And he called me at 2 and said, hey, we've got an agreement with the terms. And so I called Bill Battle and just told him that the timing wasn't right. It wasn't. And, for all the Pirate fans that have lived and died on every pitch. I mean, if that ball goes up the middle, I don't know what my decision is and how short of a legacy and shallow it would have been for me to leave for a place that I care so much about.
And it's funny that you say that because this was going to be a topic of conversation later, but you mentioned it, and it was going to be one of the things I asked. But, I mean, you think about Mississippi State and LSU and South Carolina. And I'm not saying they offered you these opportunities, but your name was certainly in the conversation. Yeah. And from our perspective, of course, the players never wanted you to leave. The fans never wanted you to leave. But I can only imagine the thoughts that are going through your head when these opportunities arise and your name's getting thrown around. But I guess, why did you stay? Why are you still a Pirate? Why is it one of those things that you know that this is where God has put you and where you need to be? And why?
Well, just on the surface of it, the biggest reason is because the only thing that I said 11 years ago in a press conference that we haven't done is played in the College World Series. And I don't know if I can look myself in the mirror and leave this place and that not happen. And I'm sure John Gilbert will use that against me at some point in time. But at the end of the day, like, if you get up and say something that you mean in the bottom of your heart that you're going to do for a place that you played at, I feel like you got to see it through, man. And money's not going to make your happiness. It's not. The relationships. And, with the South Carolina stuff came up this year, and, my agents reached out to me Tuesday morning. I'm sitting on the couch with Jeter, emotional, responding to the text message, and they're like, hey, Ray Tanner wants to talk to you today. I said, if I got to talk to anybody today, the answer is no. Like, I am not talking to anybody today. Today is me having the team over at my house.
Yeah, I was about to say, not to mention a couple days after the regional.
And if I have to talk to somebody today, the answer is no. And then, of course, they're like, no, you don't have to talk to them today. Hey, we'll handle that part of it. But he wants to talk to you. And I knew he wanted to talk to me. And Ray Tanner's, he's an all-star, man. He's a Hall of Famer, of course. And thank God I didn't go to work there. He's already stepped down as the AD. So.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Hey, hindsight 2020. Always a reason.
So I had Garrett Blackwelder, Chip Davis, and John Gavigan because they're local and they're my close circle guys come over to my house Thursday night. And Garrett asked me, he goes, why do you want to stay at ECU? Just point blank. I said, because when we host regionals and super regionals and you guys are here with your families and Chad Tracy and John Williamson and Schumacher and the list goes on and you're making sure that I get fed even when we lose to Evansville. It's the happiest time of my life. And GB goes, can't beat that, man. So, and that was literally the end of the discussion. Now, that wasn't the end of the discussion with South Carolina, but that was the end of the discussion with our close-knit group. And that's what, I mean, but the early on, especially, the underlying thing is that we haven't gone to Omaha. I mean, that's what has kept me here, for sure. But there's been times if some schools had offered me, I've been frustrated with things here that I would have probably left, even though we hadn't been to Omaha.
Right.
Even though Paul Maneri called me and goes, hey, just win the Super Regional at Vandy and the LSU job's yours, I was like, sure, Paul. Call Tim Corbin, tell him not to throw the lighter. But I thought,
exactly.
I thought, Danny, and I hope you guys believe it. And Norby said that, before we played the regional, he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're paired with." But
he said the same
I've
thing.
never been scared, dude. I wasn't scared of Chase Burns. You can tell that story.
We can talk about it later.
But it's like, dude, I've always been an underdog, but we're not backing down from Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter.
No.
We got Gavin Williams and Wizenhunt and Bridgie and Cam and Franny and Norb and Hoover and the list goes on, dude. Like, we're going in there to win that thing, that's the way I felt. But God's timing, and, it hasn't been our moment. And I know that when we do, everybody will go. It was meant to happen this way,
That's right.
And I thought we were going to do it in Texas. I mean, I've dreamed for 11 years that we were going to do it at Clark LeClaire. Like, when we've been on the road, it's, of course, we've won it, but I was like, man, how can we do it anywhere but Clark LeClaire? And I don't know. God might want us to do it on the road. I got no idea.
He's going to pick a spot wherever it is. It's going to be sick no matter where it is.
Yeah.
This episode is also brought to you by Jay Bastardo with Via Verde, Harvey's Breakfast Place, and of course his new restaurant, Bella Green. Jay is a great human, dude. He's got an awesome story. Obviously has started all these restaurants here in Greenville with his new Dominican sports bar, Bella Green, obviously Harvey's Breakfast Place, and 2 Via Verde restaurants. But Jay, I really appreciate you supporting the show. Obviously supported ECU Athletics, specifically ECU Baseball, but really appreciate you supporting the show and everything that's about. But thanks, Jay. But, I mean, it was... And I couldn't agree more where it would be so fulfilling, obviously for you, but for everybody for it to be at home. And still to this day, I have nightmares about that series. And it is one of those things where it's like Texas Tech. We're so close.
But, Danny, you were the right guy. AK and I were walking off the field, dude. Like, a lot of times I know before I tell you guys, but it was I said, AK, Danny Beal gives us the best options to start the game tomorrow. And, dude, I'd make that decision every time because of the guys that we had available at that moment. You were the best option. Did it go like planned? Hell no. But
sure didn't.
You were the best option. And I don't need to go to Omaha for myself. I want it so bad for Coach LeClaire, the LeClaire family, Lynn and Audrey and JD, and the guys I played with and the fans and the players that have played here that have been so close. It's not about me, and anybody that thinks it is that I'm staying here, because if it was about me, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. I'd be a head coach somewhere else.
You're spot on, and that's what, at least I think, from my personal experience, having conversations with people about it, when they ask me, it's like, why is he still here? And I'm like, trust me, if it was all about him, he would have been in the SEC 10 years ago. It wouldn't even been a second thought. But he wants it more for the guys that have poured so much in, the fans, the friends, the family that he practically grew up with here, for them more than anything. And obviously hindsight 2020, no matter if you end up going, we end up going, I will say that I think that you will be glad that you didn't end up staying, no matter what. And that I'm speaking for everybody that has ever played for you, currently playing for you.
And if we never go, I'm going to be glad I stayed because it's home, dude.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Like it's home. It's a family, and in this world of college athletics, but it's a family. Dude, Matt Bridges, Cam Colmore, you, like the guys that have poured their heart and soul. Man, like, dude, that means way more to me than freaking a damn trophy. Like, are you kidding me?
It's just
what's that thing gonna do? Collect dust when I'm dead?
It's like, hey, Skip Urban, hey, same thing.
Yeah,
it's all about the relationships and stuff, but. It was one of the things that I wanted to bring up, obviously, as we got more into the 2020s, but it's something that I think has been a topic of conversation, especially as the more and more SEC jobs open. It's like, hey, you're always the number one guy on the list. But I think people will be glad to hear your sentiment of that it's not about you. It's never been about you. You just want to do it for everybody that has poured so much into, including yourself, into the program the way it is. And going back to, I guess, where we were in the timeline, 2017, horrible year, as it's been well documented. I mean, it was one of those things where it's the great, and you mentioned this, the best thing that, or one of the best thing that's ever happened to this program was you losing in the conference championship game that year.
Number one best thing. We won too quick. I took my foot off the gas pedal with the culture. Gave the seniors too much rope. It's not their fault. I didn't guide them well enough to be able to. Yeah, we had injuries and stuff, but we still shouldn't have finished dead last in the conference. Like, and then basically boat race the conference tournament, and then you've got seniors that are pressing, and Houston's good, and we get beat, and it made me reflect and look in the mirror. And I tell people in any profession, one of the best qualities you have is look in the mirror and be honest with yourself, and it's not an easy thing. And then I started hearing stories of how, things were not happening at an elite level in the weight room and stuff. And while we were training, the first team meeting I had that fall, I never forget. It's like, I'm glad we lost the conference tournament championship game because we earned it. Like, that's what we earned. Mm-hmm. And that's what we get. And I'm so damn happy we had a shitty season. And I'm sure I said, as you say, some different things in there as well. But I would tell you that's one of the best falls that we've ever had.
Yeah, and you've mentioned that,
and,
no
doubt. I can just remember going to football. And me, like, I'm normally not going out there beating the drum, talking about how good we are and stuff. And people were, like, nervous, how East Carolina fans get, because they feel like we're dipped in, crap all the time.
Yeah, the sky's falling.
Yeah, the sky's falling down. Hey, are you guys going to be good? Yeah. And I'd, like, look them straight in the eye, and I know they thought, I was like, yeah, we're going to be really good.
It's the same thing this year.
But we're going to be really good because I've watched these guys work. And Turner Brown talked about how, like, he was embarrassed walking around campus in that spring of 17. And, dude, I could have told them to go run a marathon, to go swim across a lake. It didn't matter. They did it, and they were, like, fired up doing it. And I'm like, we're going to win baseball games.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I think about Connor Litton. Nobody even knew about him and how good he was for us in 18. And, to the Carolina series, first time we'd ever done the 3-game series, and Trey Benton pitches great, man, and he's shoving here in front of a packed house, and then Smitty closes it. But we got Gavin hot, and Gavin is a freshman at that time, and he's just got the heater.
Yeah, that's about it.
We're like, hey, man, if somebody catches the heater, it's going to be a tie game.
Sure.
Where Smitty's sinking the ball, and he was rolling, so Trey went 6 and Smitty went 3, and then to the Saturday game in Durham, and we pitched like crap, and Dan came down and it was like, I cut Jake's bullpen early because, the bullpen's on the field, and he's like, he's spraying the ball. Jake threw like 75 pitches in 3 innings, and then we're like bullpenning it, but 13 freebies on the mound alone. And we only lost by 1. We lost 5-4. Washer hit into a bases loaded double play in the 8th inning, and Burley hit into a double play with first and second in the 9th inning, and we lost. And the guys had like poured their heart into it.
Sure.
And so first time I'd ever really given the team some leeway, and I was like, hey, look, fellas, if we want to take batting practice tomorrow, Coach Fox said we have to take first BP, so we're going to get up an hour earlier than what we would have to do. Now, if you don't want to take BP on the field, we're going to show up. we're going to stretch.
And we're going to beat the shit out of them.
We're going to take infield, outfield.
Yeah.
And then we're going to play. I said, Turner, text me by 11:30 because the game had gone. And we spent the night in Durham. And so TB texted like, hey, guys, want to sleep in? I said, sounds good, man. Just make sure they're ready to play. We won 12-0.
Yeah, beat the crap out of them. Exactly. And it's funny because whereas when you have given the leaders that, ever since I was here, the same thing where we're on the road or even sometimes when we're at home, it's like, hey, you guys tell me what you want to do. Whatever you think will have us the best, most ready to play, that's what we'll do. But it's up to you guys. So you have to make sure you do it. And it's funny, that's where it started. But obviously 2018 was awesome. You get to go play in Seattle. It's a great experience. Host a regional for the first time obviously doesn't end up great. But I feel like that was especially after 17, that was the line in the sand of like, all right, now we go. Now is the trajectory of going up. And the next year, obviously, you've talked about how that team got cheated out of a national seed, and Pac always would give us crap. It's like you guys, and when we had Jake and Zach on, they were bantering about how
who's better,
19 or 22, who would win, and that whole thing. But we lose game. You guys lose game one of that regional, come back, incredible, obviously week, almost like we had this past year. We came up short, but same kind of thing. You run into a bus on the road in Louisville, and
that team got screwed just from the standpoint is, we had weather, of course, and that's the last time that I've put us in the second game because we were, I guess, 3 outs away from having to play a doubleheader on day one. So if the Campbell-NC State game would have finished on that first day before the rain started.
Right.
Like if they came back at 10 o'clock at night and finished the game, then the 1 seed would have had to play a double header on that Saturday.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, we got to play. We're just going to have to play the first game. And I wanted in 18 specifically, first time we're hosting a regional, like, hey, man, I want the kids to feel the crowd.
Yeah.
Man. Like, hey, dude, like,
for sure.
I want that to happen. And, but then after 19, I'm like, man, screw that.
Never again.
We're playing at noon or 2:30, and
yeah.
as you can see, it's still packed.
Yeah, and it didn't matter whether we could play at 6 a.m. We'll find a way to get people in there.
But then we had to flip around, and that's the NCAA, man. I mean, we're always going to be the underdog. It's fine, but we played the first game of the Super Regional, like the first literally at noon on. And when we went to practice on Thursday, and I gave the guys Tuesday off and Wednesday off. Literally, we did not practice baseball until Thursday. And when we broke from the huddle to run on the field for practice on Thursday, and I watched our guys run on the field, I go,
oh boy,
damn, they're dead. They don't have any legs. Plus, the wind was blowing out at practice on that Thursday, and then the storm comes in, and now it's galing in.
Yeah.
And we hit some balls off Detmers in game one early. I think Wash hit one. I think Pack hit one.
Rick hit one too.
Yeah, that would have went out. That didn't go out.
Right.
The game's different, but that's
it's baseball.
That's baseball. But I knew our guys were gassed, you know, for sure. So I felt bad for that team from the standpoint of we had the number 2 strength of schedule in the entire country.
RPI was nuts too.
Our RPI is 5, and D1 baseball's putting out like, oh, we're like a 12. How are we a 12 seed? Like, come on, like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I feel like, again, 2019, the Super Regional happens, and it's like, all right, well, it's close in 16. Didn't even make it out of a regional last year. This year, we lose game 1 of a regional, so we're exhausted by the time we get to it. It's like, can we just catch a break just one time? And the following year, it's like, all right, this is Gavin's draft year. This is Burley's draft year. Like, this is a good squad. And you started out great. Obviously, the LeClaire Classic, the big game that everybody remembers, was the Ole Miss game on Saturday, which you only lost by 1 to an SEC team, which is like all right, we got a legit squad this year. We talked about it when we had the Norbies on. And it was the same thing of, all right, where do we go from here? And then COVID happens. And it's a whirlwind of a lot of different emotions because it's Burley's got to make a decision. Gavin's got to make a decision. What are we going to do with the incoming freshman class? Like, are we going to be able to play baseball in a couple months? Like, all of this stuff happens. And it was certainly difficult to manage because, as we talked about when Gavin was on, he decides to stay. Burley decides to leave. And
Gavin decides to say, I want everybody to hear this, because he broke his finger.
Yeah, best thing.
He pitched out of the bullpen. His first start was going to be against Columbia on Friday night. The season got canceled in the middle of the week. Everybody saw him as a reliever still. He was 17 when he got to school, so he's 20 years old at the time. He's actually 21 when he got drafted after his 4th year.
Yeah.
A lot of things aligned. Gavin stuck to his number, was pissed, as he talked about, comes back, learns how to spin the baseball a lot better, and is one of the best starting pitchers in the history of ECU baseball in that season. You know, you talk about, since I've been here, you talk about Krasinski didn't have the stuff, but Krasinski in 16, Jake Agnos in 19, Gavin in 21, Trey in 24, and Trey was good in 23, but you know, Trey like in 24, the guy. Yeah. You know, Gavin doesn't get picked 23rd overall if he didn't come back, and he doesn't have that adversity, you know, with the broken finger and stuff. And every great player, I mean, Burley had appendicitis his freshman year, like nobody even talks about that, and he was our closer. Goes down with appendicitis, and he was hitting. And then when he gets healthy, I go, oh, by the way, you're going into the Saturday role. Like, hey, you haven't even been playing, but you're going into the Saturday role. And he starts against South Carolina as a freshman.
Yeah. That was short hair Burley.
Yeah, in the winner's bracket game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But, and like you said, I mean, Gavin staying was what made him his money, because he had a great year the next year, and we play as well as we can with 4-game weekends, and Norby has an unreal year. Gavin playing well. Wiz is coming along. We run into, of course, another buzzsaw with two top 5 picks in the first round with Leiter and Kumar, and another super regional loss. And it's like, all right. And then we make it through 21, and then we get to the fall of 21, and Nico passes away. And then you have your bouts with COVID and the motions that are running through your system of obviously feeling like, what are we going to do with the super regionals? We get there, we can't knock the door down. And that entire year, as you've talked about, we mentioned it on the Good Amen with Aaron Kennedy, but that year, and especially from probably September to July of 21 to 22, was some of the hardest times you've ever experienced in your life, whether it was your faith, Nico passing away, us starting 530 games through the year. Like, how, I guess initially, how was your faith tested during that time? You've mentioned it was incredibly difficult, but going through that entire year with how hard it was with Zach and us not playing well, on top of your own personal struggles, what was that 8-month, 9-month, 10-month period like?
I would still say in 21, I thought I was in the fall of 21. I thought I was still in control. Like, I was having some bad thoughts and, you know, battling some demons internally. Nico's passing definitely set me back. And then I got COVID right after that, so it was like a double whammy. But I knew we were going to play like crap because our preseason.
Yeah.
I mean, you can remember that, dude. I can remember, we're not good.
You know, it's miserable.
Like, we're I don't know what we were preseason ranked that year, but
it was top 10, but
top 10.
We were even like,
I'm
I
like,
don't
dude,
know.
you guys think we're like a top 10 program? Like, you're crazy. Like, we can't even do pop fly com and get 27 outs. We're like having to move on to something else. And you know, so when we got swept by Bryant, like, yeah, I was pissed, but it wasn't shocking to me. And I can remember, like, I was super hard on that freshman class, and you know, Jake Hunter and I've talked about it a lot, even McChrystal and JC some, but they wouldn't been juniors the way they were if I hadn't have been.
For sure not.
But I knew, like, we were doing the right things, and I was pulling it, but it just wasn't happening. So I still thought I was in control. And then, you know, the spring of 22, you know, we just get on that roll, man. And it's like, now I'm like, hey, just stay out of the way, dude. Like, just don't,
let them do that.
Let them do their deal and let them roll. And, man, it was such a fun ride. And I wish I could just go back and, you know, experience some of those games. We get down. It wasn't even like a thought process. Like, we get down like 4 runs in the first inning and no panic. It's like, hey, we've done this before. Just hang in there. And our bullpen will hold it somehow. And we'll keep. But I think one of the best decisions that we made was, you know, Ryder going into the rotation. And, of course, that's unorthodox. I appreciate him at the time being selfless to do that. And that allowed Zach to play shortstop. And then Zach closing. And, you know, all the things just kind of fell into place. And it really helped us. And then Ryder didn't end up pitching good down the stretch. But if we don't have that time,
for sure,
then we don't go on the winning streak, and who knows what happens the rest of the season. But, man, what a ride, dude. And then to be the only team that since we've been here to win the regular season and the conference tournament and like just roll through it.
Sweep it. Like
Yeah.
there was never even a doubt throughout the
Yeah.
entire week of like we might not have, maybe once or twice. I don't even think we got down that week, like in the game. Like I don't even think we were trailing at any point. It was pure domination, and it was 20
We did
straight
get down to
games.
the South Florida game because in the
That's
conference
right.
because
That's right. And Bryson threw a dude out from like the highway behind the stadium.
AK and I remember this very vividly. Like Zach was spinning this guy, I can't remember who it was, and like he's fouling off, and I'm like, man, just throw a fastball in to get him off of it. And I'm like, get it in off the plate. Like, if you hit him, so what? I think it was like a runner third with 1 out or whatever. And so he didn't get it in good enough, and he gets enough barrel on it, and AK's like, shit. And Bryson gets behind it, and we're like, oh, that's a run. And it gets out of his hand. You're like, oh, wow, hold on. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's one of the best throws I've ever seen. And then Ben Newton's, like, on video, if you don't slow it, like, it doesn't, but it's a great like catcher's tag
and
pick.
dekes it perfectly too to make it seem like it wasn't coming in.
Yeah, and then he hits a grand slam the next half inning.
It was when he was Barry Bonds.
Yeah, for sure. So you roll through that, and then really when my downward spiral personally, like to like, hey man, I need some help, was Parker Bird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Parker Bird's accident, and not the accident itself, but when he had to get his leg amputated, and that sent me down, and then COVID again, and then knee replacement infection.
It's never ending.
Just never ending of like, hey, man, I don't know if I just want to live anymore. And, that was when I had to lean on my faith and like God. At the time, it didn't feel like God was holding my hand, but like now God holds I can feel him when I'm making decisions and stuff. And I talk to him throughout the day. About decisions and stuff, and like I said, about bringing in the right guys. And dude, they're all different humans, but they're all good dudes, man. These portal guys. I mean, John Collins, like, I don't know how much he's going to play for us, and he's telling us it's like the best baseball experience. He's been in college for 6 years,
yeah,
and it's the best baseball. And he's telling freshmen that, like, hey man, you guys don't know any different, but this is like the best. Yeah,
100%.
So that's what I would say, Danny, on that.
Hope you guys are enjoying the episode so far. This episode's also brought to you by the 23 Club. Mike Harrington has been gracious enough to help out all of his sponsors as well to sponsor the program, obviously. It's been a great opportunity to be able to work with him. 23 Club is a big NIL initiative that is part of Team Boneyard, but an opportunity to give specifically to the baseball program. He does a great job with obviously getting the brand out there. Be on the lookout for a bunch of get-togethers and meetings, obviously in the spring as the season kicks off, but a great opportunity to give NIL money straight to the players, obviously with Team Boneyard, so you can do both. But thank you, Mike Harrington. Thank you, 23 Club, for sponsoring the show, and I appreciate you guys. Yeah, and it has been something that you've talked about a lot, and that, I guess, year stretch, especially after Parker happened, I think it was one of those things where that's where you had to lean on it the most. And Blake mentioned it too, where it was almost guilty for him. He felt guilty when he would talk to God, pray a lot more when things were going bad, rather than doing it all the time, even when things were good were happening to him. Yeah. And especially during that time, like you just mentioned, you leaned on him a lot. And I think and I think you would admit this, from when you were starting here in 2014 to Christmas 2024, I think you would admit that it has been not necessarily a 180, but you have changed a lot in terms of faith, priorities, and the numerous other characteristics and things that you could say, I think my principles and my priorities are straight 10 years later, and I can look in the mirror and say, I'm a godly man, and I have, I want to go to Omaha, but the other things are more important than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously still a sinner today, as we all are, but like I was kind of living two different lives. I mean, not that I was going out partying and stuff, but I was definitely not treating females the way that they should be treated. And, I'm telling our guys to have integrity, and I don't have integrity in relationships I have with females, not with males, but with females specifically. I'm a better coach. I'm a better person. And I know it. God put me on my knees to like, hey man, like you think you've been in control of this your whole entire life. And it's not like I didn't grow up in church. It's just that, once you get to high school and you go to college, and I was running for different personal things that I've talked about on the podcast, but it was like, all right, work hard, play hard, repeat. And if I continue to do that, working hard, I will climb up the ladder of success, and I'll be successful because I'll be a great coach on the winning side, and I'll financially be rich. I mean, not that I was saying about get rich, but like you just keep winning, then you're going to get another job. It's going to pay more money. It's the next thing on. And I would tell you that go talk to any successful CEO that's done that, and it's a shallow hole, because then, you know, and what day, but like then the wins don't mean as much, and then you're like, God, like what am I doing it for? Like, I mean, the wins used to give you this endorphin, like happiness and stuff, and now it's like
relief almost.
It's a relief, yeah.
And it's. I feel like people have noticed too the trail of the ups and downs, the Rockies, not only with the team, obviously in the program, but you specifically, people close, and for people that think they know you really well, but are more like on the outside looking in, of they can see how God's worked in you, how players in the last 5-10 years have worked in you, of molding you. And it's funny that we were talking earlier about Coach LeClaire, and it's like, you guys think you worked hard, and it's the same kind of thing of like, Ethan asks us, and we're like, dude, you have no idea. I asked Norby, and Norby's like, dude, you have no idea. Norby asks whoever else, and it's one of those things, but it's the same thing of like, Coach Godwin was different when Garrett Brooks played. Coach Godwin was different when Packard played. Coach Godwin was different when I played. Coach Godwin's now completely different than when Ethan Norby's playing. And it's the same thing of your walk in your faith. It's never done. Like, you're forever evolving. And it's the same thing with you as a person and you as a coach too. It's never ending. Like, you're always developing, you're always changing, you're never staying stagnant. It's never plateaued. It's always been a high climb, which I think is admirable, in where you could have left, you could have done all these other things, you could have chased money, you could have whatever it is. But I think the fact that you have stuck to your morals and done what you've done since you've been here, it's one of those things where you can tell that God's working in you.
Yeah. Well, I would hope so. You know, that's the plan for sure. Yeah. And I think, and I was talking to one of my buddies last night, I think Christianity, especially like in the era that I grew up, you know, people would make you feel like crap when you did something wrong.
Yeah.
And hypocritical, because like we're all sinners. Like, all right, if your sin is that you drink a lot, well, the person that's judging you right now has a sin. It might not be drinking, but it has a sin, yeah. You know, and I think that turns a lot of people away from Christianity. And when it literally says in the Bible, the only person that's supposed to judge is God himself. And we've all done it at some point in time, but I would say that the thing I'm better at the most is I try not to judge, and I try to understand where that person has come from. And there's been so many players that, especially in our program right now, that have come from like challenging circumstances, man. Right. And I'm always like, if you'll just stay honest with me, dude, like, I don't care what your past is. Like, I'll be in the fight with you, dude, as long as you're honest with me and you'll just be transparent with whatever happens. Mm-hmm. Hey, man, I'll be in the fight with you. And that's one of the biggest changes for me, for sure.
Yeah, and it's been very evident, especially since these last few years have happened. Essentially, since COVID, you've been able to notice that. But you've obviously been so gracious with your time, so we'll only have a couple more questions just because we want to get you out of here. But these are first thing that pops in your head.
I knew Danny had to give me something off the cuff a little bit here, right here. So
what, would you expect anything different?
Yeah, no,
of course not. All right, what was your favorite team since you've been here,
dude?
Pick a year. If gun to your head, pick a year. Most enjoyable.
I would let somebody shoot me.
Okay.
Yeah, and like, because the first thing that pops in my head, because it wasn't a joke, but I'm like, how could you ever discredit the 15 team? Mm-hmm. Like, no, they don't have the accolades, but you know, you said the 16 team laid the foundation. The 15 team, like, because nobody has been through what they went through, and we had 26 healthy players. Like, there's no travel roster.
That's right. No,
just get on the bus. Hey, if you're healthy, get on the bus.
We
fellas.
don't have enough.
Hunter Allen tore a ligament in his thumb, game 5, and either you have surgery and your senior year's over, or Womack creates this grip on a bat, and he switched it, so he had to have 2 bats with 2 different grips. And he didn't take a swing other than the games for the last 50-some games, and got snubbed on the all-conference team for shortstop, and then won MVP of the conference tournament.
Pretty tough. Not bad.
Yeah, and I just say that because, like, how would I pick between any of the teams, dude? And look, have there been some moments that you're like, man, that was like the 20-game win streak.
That was one of the next questions.
Dude, that's special. But dude, all the teams have different special moments, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to be this. I really am not.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
That was I was honestly writing that question down, and I'm like, he's probably going to say they're all my favorite or something like that, where it's like I can't pick one because they all have their own special meaning to you.
My
and the
least
community.
favorite, 17.
It's clear favorite. It's the runaway betting odds. Yeah, wonder what that is. That's funny. All right, next one is, what's one piece of memorabilia that you are like most proud of? So, like for example, stuff in your office. What's the one thing that someone you've never met before, that's the first thing you want to show them?
Just put it up this fall, but picture of my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And me in a $100 bill that he had in his wallet when he passed away. And my grandmother wrote a note after he passed and said it was in his wallet. And he would give me $100 every time I hit a home run.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't at a point to even put it up in my office. Actually, when my grandmother gave me that card, I told my mom to hold on to it because I was scared I'd spend the $100 bill because I was like 23 years old at the time, money, right? And but I don't know if that's memorabilia. I mean, Gavin Williams just dropped off a framed jersey, put on social media. Yeah. And dude, those are the things, and I've said this to a few people, but the things that keep me going, coaching in a very unstable college, is Burley being in the big leagues and Norby and Gavin, but Lane Hoover, when I see his face,
always
when he back in
yeah.
time, like I'm just pulling out like guys calling me up and going, Bryce Harmon yesterday, and just us talking. And when Bryce first graduated, he saw Carl Lafferty down in Jupiter, and Bryce wasn't a big fan of me when he first graduated. And then a couple years later, him grabbing Carl Lafferty when he was a scout and saying, Laff, I know, a couple years ago, I didn't understand why Coach was the way he was, and I'm so thankful. So those are the things that keep me going.
Those are the moments, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next one. What was your, I say favorite, what was the most like reasonable objection you've ever had? Like one that you were like, okay, I understand why I'm getting so mad, and I understand why you just tossed me. There's one that comes to my mind, but I'm curious as to which one you think of.
I mean, reasonable, probably Tulane this year. Like I just lost it,
Yeah, you
most unreasonable, Dixon being surrounded by players and me just trying to get Dixon off the field. And
yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. And then get suspended.
Suspended is the craziest part.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
So, what's your most reasonable one?
When the umpire couldn't see and he called time when Jada hit that walk-off. And it's like, what do you mean you couldn't see? Like, what are you talking about? And then you reasonably lost your shit.
Yeah.
Which is like, no kidding, that would happen.
Yeah. I thought you said like, as far as like me just
deserving
to being thrown out, so to speak.
Yeah. There have been a couple where it's like, okay, like, we see what you're doing, Coach. You're trying.
JC was probably the funniest because
we're trying to hold you back
when he, give him squeeze, and like you talk about as bad of a result as you can. He bunts it. He thinks he fouled it off. He doesn't run.
Right.
Tags whoever's coming out from third and throws JC out. And I just wanted the guy to get some help.
Yeah.
Just to ask him. And he
have a conversation.
Yeah, just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have a conversation. And then I lose my, and then I can kind of remember JC, but I didn't really know it was JC because I was in red lights at the time. But like somebody like trying to grab my arm, and I could hear it, and then I'm just like, what? And then JC's like, yeah, all right.
There's a YouTube video of it where he's like, you're like getting up in the umpire's face, and he's trying to hold you back, and then you almost like, I can't remember if it was like a half spin move or like just a shrug, and he's like, all right, I'm done. I can't do anything else. He's a foregone conclusion at this point. But all right, last question. You got engaged.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah,
at the beach, obviously. Bree, your fiance, now you got to celebrate it with all your friends at the at the beach house you guys got. But what was that experience like? I mean, it is one of those things that we've talked about in the past where it's like, is Coach Godwin ever going to get to the point where he wants to settle down, find someone, potentially have a family? But what was that decision like, and how cool of an experience was it?
Obviously, it's taken me a long time to get to a place to be able to have a healthy relationship. If you'd asked me 2-3 years ago, I'd have said, I don't see myself getting married, and I just never could have a healthy relationship. And this summer, Bree actually came to the regional, and I actually had made a decision in the spring not that I told her, but I just like, I'm not going to communicate with her unless I know, like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And she comes to the regional, and she told me she was coming, but she was staying with Alex Ketty. So, like, I saw her, but, and I knew in my heart then that she was the one, but then I let life supersede her for a little bit, like I've done in the past with my profession, because we lose. You got guys going in the portal. I got the team coming over.
Emotional.
You got the South Carolina stuff going on. I mean, I literally told Blake, and just so I can give a shout out to Blake. I mean, Blake,
the best.
Yeah, held my hand through a lot of tough times. But I handed Blake my credit card like on Tuesday. Hey, you want to go to Tampa to see Norby on Friday? Hey, book us a nice hotel for Friday and Saturday. We're going to the games Friday, Saturday. You're flying back on Sunday to Greenville. I'm going to Vegas for Parker Birds of War on Sunday. So you get all the flight out. Here's my credit card. And literally,
book it.
I didn't talk to him because we got exit meetings. I got the South Carolina stuff going on. And I had texted Bree and stuff, and then I was like trying to get her to come down here. And it just was kind of like, and so finally one day on the beach, I was with my mom and Jeter, and I never take my AirPods down to the beach. And for that day I did, because I was by myself. And I walked to the end of the beach, and I called her and just pushed all my chips in. And she wasn't all in. And as I told her, it's like, if you told me to go F off,
literally,
right now,
I would get it.
I would earn every second of it. And, I'm good. And that just shows you how big of a heart she has. And her parents say it's like a Hallmark movie, so they're big into Hallmark. But
of course they are.
Yeah, but back to the engagement piece specifically, Bree got to pick out the ring, because I don't know anything about rings on Monday of Labor Day here in town. Laura Reese, Mike A-Man, knew the owner, Billy Pate, and they opened up the store on Monday before we had the team over this year for Labor Day. And she picked it out. So she knew she had a ring, but she didn't see it all put together.
When it was coming along.
And then, it came in, and she loves the beach. I love the beach. And Katie Tracy helped me with the photographer, and she had her kids run around. So we actually walked through the photographer and her kids, and it looks like, if you don't know who it is, the lady's taking pictures of her kids.
Yeah, you make it see. Hide it. Yeah.
So,
of course.
good plan, and thank God it was like 60.
Shout out Katie Tracy.
Yeah, and 60 degrees, and I just got down on a knee, and the most nervous thing was I just wanted the moment to be right for her.
Right.
Like, girls have thought about this moment in their head.
Yeah,
their
since they were little.
Life,
yeah, sure.
So. But she loved it, and then the Tracys and the Laffertys were down there too, and so they were down on the beach a little bit farther, and then they came up, and so it was awesome.
Yeah, no, that is a cool experience, just because, I mean, some of the players that were around, at least this summer, and I'm sure you told other guys too, just we had kind of seen it coming. We knew that this was something that you wanted to do, and you were very emotionally invested, and we were obviously super pumped for you. And you posted the pic. I think Bree posted it on Instagram before you did.
Hey, Pirate Radio posted it before I did.
Shout out Pirate Radio. Yeah, hey, just covering the news, I guess.
Yeah.
But we were getting, I know Trey and I specifically, and Carter too, just because we're all living together right now, but our phones were blowing up being like, Coach Godwin got engaged? And we're like, yeah. But in our eyes, we've known this for 3 or 4 months. So we're like, yeah, whatever. But then people are like just finding out, and we're like, pretty cool, right? Like, that's a special moment for him, just because of obviously you and Bree's relationship and how far it's come along, and the fact that you got to celebrate it, like you said, at the beach with a place that's very both special to you and her, and with so many people that you love and care about around. It's a good moment, and I'm glad it happened.
Well, thanks, Danny. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, well, thank you for being so gracious with your time. We kept you for like 2 hours, but you're the man for hanging out for a little bit and talking and catching up. So I appreciate you hanging out.
All right, no problem. And you can put everything that we did out there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, that's this episode of the Danny Beal Show with Coach G. But thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed.